The approach of the unknown. In the heart of the galaxy, far from the reach of most civilizations, lay an empire so vast and powerful that it had conquered countless planets. The Zaldar Empire, known for its ruthless strength and technological superiority, ruled over the stars with an iron fist. For centuries, no force had ever come close to challenging their dominance. They had seen everything, from massive fleets to terrifying weapons, but nothing had ever truly threatened them. However, today was different. Today, something was approaching their borders, something unlike anything they had encountered before. The Zaldar Empire's vast network of scouts and sensors detected the anomaly. At first, it was just a blip on their radar, insignificant, like countless other objects drifting through the void. But this one was different. It was moving fast, almost as if it had a purpose, a direction. The scouts quickly sent the information back to the Empire's central command. The command room of the Zaldar Empire was a place of steel walls, cold metal floors, and high-tech equipment that gleamed with an eerie glow. Thousands of alien figures moved with swift precision, working to ensure the Empire's control over the stars. Among them stood the Empire's most seasoned generals and commanders, their eyes sharp with years of battle experience. They were used to threats, used to violence, but nothing could have prepared them for what was coming. The signal from the scouts had now grown clearer. The object wasn't just floating aimlessly. It was heading straight for their core systems. Something was out there, something intentional. The commanders exchanged uneasy glances. There had been rumors, whispers in the corridors, of a new force rising in the galaxy. Some dismissed them as nothing more than rumors, the fears of those who could not accept the Empire's rule. But now, these whispers seemed to carry a weight, a truth that they could no longer ignore. "Is it a ship?" General Collar, the most respected of the commanders, asked in a deep voice, his eyes fixed on the screen. His hands gripped the edge of the control panel as if holding on to his last ounce of confidence. The technician at the console quickly responded, his voice trembling slightly. It appears to be a warship, sir, but it's unlike any we've ever seen before. The size, the structure, it's not in any of our databases." The room went silent. A warship. The Zaldar Empire had encountered thousands of different warships in their time, each with unique designs and capabilities. But this was something completely unknown, something that didn't fit into their understanding of warfare. The ship's strange energy readings were unlike anything the Zaldars had studied before. Its power was off the charts. General Kaller turned to his second-in-command. "Commander Alara, prepare our fleets. We need to be ready for anything." Alara nodded, her expression hardening. "At once, sir." Meanwhile, the scouts watched from the outer edges of the galaxy as the mysterious ship continued its path toward the Empire's core systems. The closer it got, the more terrifying it became. The Zaldars had learned to be cautious when dealing with the unknown. They'd had their share of surprises, some good, but many bad. "What do we know about it?" Collar asked again, his voice calm, but with an edge of urgency. "The readings indicate it's made of an unknown alloy," the technician responded, "and there seems to be an unusual energy source coming from it. We've never seen anything like it. It's moving faster than any ship we've ever encountered." The silence that followed was heavy. The alien commanders knew that if this ship could breach their defenses, it would signal the end of their reign. The Empire had built itself up by crushing enemies, by wiping out entire civilizations that dared to oppose them. But now, they were facing something new, something that had the potential to destroy them. The warship's speed was increasing. It was heading straight for Zaldar's capital. No retreat, no hesitation. It was as though it knew exactly where it was going. And it wasn't slowing down. "We cannot allow it to reach the capital," Collar said, his voice colder now. "Prepare the fleet, get every ship ready for launch, and bring up the Empire's full might." As the orders were sent out, the fleet began to mobilize. Thousands of ships, each one a deadly weapon, emerged from the Empire's hangars. They lined up in formation, their engines roaring to life. The Zaldar Empire had never been afraid of any force, but today, something felt different. Something in the air, something in the very stars themselves seemed to pulse with a sense of foreboding. The fleet moved into position, surrounding the mysterious ship. The alien commanders watched from their command posts, eager to strike, to engage in battle, to show this unknown force the full strength of the Zaldar Empire. But there was something else they hadn't counted on. As the alien fleet prepared to attack, they received another transmission. A signal. But this one was not like any other. The transmission was a simple message, one that made every Zaldar commander freeze in place. It wasn't a war cry. It wasn't a threat. It wasn't even a warning. It was just two words. We are human. The room fell into complete silence. The alien fleet, the massive warships, the energy weapons, they were all ready to engage, but nothing could prepare them for what came next. The first encounter. The Zaldar commanders stared at the screen in shock, unable to fully process what they had just heard. We are human. The message echoed in their minds. Humanity. The humans, a species they had long dismissed as insignificant. How could such a small, primitive race send a warship capable of such destruction? General Cowler slammed his fist onto the control panel, his face twisted with disbelief. Activate all communication channels. I want to know who's responsible for this, he ordered. The technicians scrambled to obey, but there was no further communication from the human ship. The alien fleet was now positioned in formation, ready to launch their first strike, but the strange warship continued to approach, its presence looming larger with each passing second. The Zaldar fleet was vast. Hundreds of ships, some larger than cities, each equipped with weapons powerful enough to destroy entire worlds. The Zaldars had always won their battles through overwhelming force. They had never needed to question their superiority. But now, facing this unknown ship, doubt was creeping into their minds. Commander Alara, Cowler growled, ready the first wave of attack ships. We'll see if these humans can withstand our firepower. Alara nodded quickly, her face tight with concentration. The orders were passed down to the fleet, and moments later, the first wave of Zaldar ships surged forward. Their engines blazed as they closed in on the human warship, weapons primed and ready. From the bridge of the human ship, Captain Jonah Strider stood calmly, his eyes scanning the vastness of space. The ship was silent, almost serene. The crew around him worked without panic. Jonah had led his people through countless battles, and his face betrayed no fear. The human flag fluttered in the wind, a symbol of everything they had fought for. He knew what this moment meant. It was humanity's time to show the galaxy what they were capable of. The Zaldar fleet launched their attack. Hundreds of laser beams, plasma bursts, and missile salvos streaked toward the human warship. But instead of the expected explosion, a brilliant shield of energy enveloped the human vessel. The weapons collided with the shield and dissipated into nothing. The human ship remained unharmed. For a brief moment, the Zaldars thought it might be a fluke. Then, as if to answer their disbelief, the ship opened fire. A single powerful beam shot from the human warship's core. It cut through the Zaldar fleet with surgical precision. The first alien ship in the line exploded in a fiery burst, disintegrating before the Zaldars could react. Another ship followed, then another, until the fleet's front lines were decimated in a matter of seconds. The Zaldars had never seen such power before. This was no ordinary weapon. This was something far beyond their understanding. Panic rippled through the ranks of the Zaldar fleet. The commanders shouted orders, but their ships were already retreating. The speed and force of the attack had left them no time to counter. General Cowler's hands trembled as he watched the destruction unfold. He turned to his communications officer. "Get me a direct line to the fleet commanders. Now." The officer worked furiously at the console, but the communication lines were quickly filled with static. A few transmissions came through, but they were filled with reports of chaos, ships fleeing, commanders abandoning their posts, and entire divisions disintegrating. Collar slammed his fist onto the control panel again, the cold realization settling in. They were losing, and they didn't even understand why. What in the stars is going on? How can they have such power? Collar muttered, his voice barely a whisper. The human warship moved forward, effortlessly cutting through the alien fleet. Each shot was calculated. Each strike was devastating. It was not a show of overwhelming numbers, but of precision and skill. The humans were using their limited resources with such efficiency that the Zaldars were left reeling. Jomit Strider stood on the bridge, calm as ever. He wasn't surprised by the success of their weapons. He had expected nothing less. The human warship, designed for one purpose, to protect and to conquer, was carrying out its mission perfectly. It was built from the finest technology humanity had to offer, a symbol of their resilience and determination. With each alien ship destroyed, the human flag fluttered more proudly. It was more than just fabric. It was a symbol of survival, of a species that had fought its way from the brink of extinction. Now, it was a symbol of power. The Zaldar commanders knew that they had underestimated humanity, and they were paying the price. Their once mighty empire was now on the verge of collapse. Panic spread across their ships as they retreated farther into the galaxy, but Jonah knew this wasn't over. This was just the beginning. The human warship pursued, relentless and unyielding. It was clear to the Zaldars now. Humanity had arrived, and they were not going to be ignored. A flag that changed everything. The battle raged on, with the Zaldar fleet retreating in disarray. What had started as a confident strike against an unknown enemy had now turned into a desperate fight for survival. Zaldar ships, once the epitome of power, were being shattered by the unrelenting firepower of the human warship. Alien vessels exploded in violent bursts of light, their remains floating aimlessly in space, caught in the wake of humanity's wrath. General Collar, standing at the helm of the Empire's command ship, could feel the tide turning against them. His heart pounded in his chest as he watched his fleet crumble before the human warship's unyielding assault. Every strike from the human vessel seemed more precise, more powerful. The Zaldars had sent their best, and yet they were being torn apart by a force they couldn't understand. Order the fleet to retreat. All remaining ships, fall back to the outer rim. Collar barked, his voice tight with panic. But even as the command left his lips, the realization settled in that the warship wasn't going to let them escape so easily. As the alien ships scattered, a strange shift occurred. The human warship stopped firing. The space around the battlefield grew eerily quiet, the silence a stark contrast to the chaos of moments ago. For the first time since the battle began, the Zaldars dared to believe they might have a chance to escape. But then, as if in answer to their brief hope, the human warship did something that would haunt the Zaldar commanders forever. The ship slowly turned, and in that moment, the humans revealed something even more terrifying than their weaponry, their flag. The human flag, a symbol of unity and strength, was raised high on the warship. It billowed proudly in the void of space, its colors vivid even against the backdrop of distant stars. To the Zaldars, it wasn't just a piece of fabric. It was a symbol of something far greater, a symbol of humanity's resilience, their unwavering spirit, and their refusal to be defeated. It sent a message louder than any weapon ever could. The flag wasn't just a banner. It was a statement. And as the human flag unfurled, the alien commanders were struck by a deep primal fear. They had fought countless species over the centuries, yet they had never faced something like this before. This wasn't just a warship. This wasn't just an enemy fleet. This was humanity itself, standing tall, ready to claim its place in the stars. For the Zaldars, the flag represented a future they couldn't control, a future where their empire might not survive. They had always believed they were the galaxy's rulers. They had conquered civilizations, crushed their enemies, and enslaved worlds. But now, staring at the human flag, they were faced with the terrifying realization that the balance of power in the galaxy was shifting. Collar's eyes widened as the true meaning of the flag began to sink in. This wasn't a threat of just military force. It was a declaration that the human race would never kneel. They had seen countless civilizations fall. But this was something different. It was as if the flag itself carried the weight of every human who had ever fought for survival, every person who had ever struggled, sacrificed, and dreamed. "General," said Alara, her voice breaking the silence, "they're not just fighting us. They're fighting for something much greater. Their flag, it's a symbol of everything they've endured. They won't stop." Collar's hands gripped the edge of his command chair as he struggled to compose himself. He had faced countless enemies, seen thousands of planets fall, but nothing had ever prepared him for this. He had never seen fear on the faces of his fleet like he saw now. The sight of the human flag had shattered their resolve. The human ship, now fully revealed, seemed almost serene in its power. It wasn't just a warship. It was the embodiment of a species that had clawed its way from the brink of destruction. The Zaldars had thought humanity weak, vulnerable, easy to dismiss. But now, they saw the truth. Humanity was anything but weak. They were survivors, and they would never stop fighting. The human flag fluttered in the void, visible even to the farthest corners of space, a challenge to the Zaldar Empire's belief in its own invincibility. As the human ship slowly moved forward, the Zaldar fleet, what little remained of it, was frozen in place. The question hung in the air, unspoken but undeniable. Could they stand against this new power? Could they stand against the unbreakable will of humanity? The moment of hesitation was all the human warship needed. The next attack came swiftly, without warning. A beam of energy, brighter and more intense than before, shot from the warship's core, piercing through the remaining Zaldar ships like a knife through paper. In an instant, entire fleets were gone, scattered into cosmic dust. The human flag remained in the background, a silent witness to the destruction, its presence a constant reminder of the unstoppable force humanity had become. As the last of the Zaldar ships retreated into the vastness of space, the human warship stood alone in the void, its flag still waving proudly. The Zaldars had been defeated, but humanity's journey had only just begun. The humans' unyielding spirit. As the last remnants of the Zaldar fleet flood into the deep corners of the galaxy, General Collar watched in stunned silence. The once mighty empire, which had never known defeat, was now reeling from the human warship's devastating attack. The warship had not only destroyed their military forces, but had also shattered their pride. The Zaldars had made a grave mistake in underestimating humanity. In the quiet of his command room, Collar finally found his voice. "Gather the council," he ordered. "I need to speak with the highest authorities. We must plan our next move. But this changes everything." The Zaldar Council convened in an emergency session, their faces grim as they looked at the holographic display of the human warship. The flag was still visible, a looming symbol in their minds. They could no longer think of the humans as weak or primitive. What they had witnessed was the full force of humanity's resilience. Meanwhile, aboard the human warship, Captain Jonah Strider stood in the ship's bridge, watching as the stars stretched across the view screen. The battle was over, but the war was far from it. Jonah felt a deep sense of pride for his crew, but he knew this victory was only a small piece of what lay ahead. The Zaldar Empire had been just the beginning. "Captain," said Lieutenant Sarah Vale, a steady hand on the ship's controls, "we've received word from Earth. They want us to return immediately to prepare for the next phase." Jonah nodded. The warship, designed to carry humanity's hopes, had been a symbol of their strength. But its true power lay not just in its weapons, but in what it represented. Humans had fought and bled for centuries, and now they were fighting for the future of their species. The warship wasn't just a military tool, it was a statement of everything humanity had overcome. Jonah turned to Sarah, his eyes filled with determination. "We won't stop. The Zaldars may have underestimated us, but the galaxy will learn quickly that we are a force to be reckoned with. Our spirit will not be broken. Not now. Not ever. The crew nodded in agreement. The atmosphere on the bridge was filled with resolve. The battle against the Zaldar Empire had been fierce, but it had also awakened something in humanity. It had reminded them of who they were, survivors, warriors, and dreamers who would never be content to remain in the shadows. Back on Earth, the human race watched in awe as their warship made history. News of their victory over the Zaldar Empire spread like wildfire, sparking a renewed sense of unity among the nations. For the first time in centuries, humans saw themselves not as a fractured species, but as a single unified force, ready to claim their place among the stars. But not all humans shared the same sense of pride. Some, especially the leaders of Earth's governments, were deeply concerned about the warship's power. They had always feared the potential of humanity's military advancements. The question now was how far they should go in expanding their reach. Was humanity ready for the responsibility that came with such power? Or had they unleashed a force too dangerous to control? Jonas Strider knew the answer. Humanity has earned its place, he said to his officers as they prepared for their next mission. We've been tested, and we've shown the galaxy that we won't back down. The human flag, still flying proudly from the warship's mast, was not just a symbol of victory. It was the spirit of humanity made visible. Relentless, unyielding, and unafraid of the unknown. It wasn't about dominance. It was about survival. It was about proving to the galaxy that humanity would never again be relegated to the sidelines. Captain Jonas Strider knew this war was far from over. The Zaldar Empire was just one piece of the puzzle. There were more enemies out there, more challenges to face. But now, humanity had something that no one could take away from them. Their spirit, their courage, and the unwavering belief that they could overcome anything. The human warship, flying the flag of humanity, drifted through space, a symbol of everything they had fought for. And as it sailed toward the next battle, Jonah knew that the galaxy was watching. Humanity's time had come, and they would stop at nothing to protect it. The alien desperation. The Zaldar Empire had never known such fear. The destruction of their fleet, the collapse of their dominance, had sent shockwaves through their entire society. No empire, no race, had ever dared challenge the Zaldars with such force, such precision. And yet, the humans, those once thought to be weak and insignificant, had done just that. General Kaller sat in the darkened war room, his mind racing as he reviewed the aftermath of the battle. His fleet had been decimated. Thousands of Zaldar ships, once the pride of their empire, now lay as broken husks in the void of space. His military leaders, his comrades in arms, had been humiliated, unable to even comprehend the full scale of the human warship's power. And the human flag, the symbol of their indomitable spirit, was still burned into his memory, a constant reminder of his failure. Kaller wasn't used to this kind of defeat. He had conquered entire star systems with ease, obliterated enemies who had dared rise against the Zaldar Empire. Yet now, for the first time in his long career, he faced an enemy that could not be crushed with brute force alone. The Zaldar Council had convened an emergency session. Their desperation was palpable, their once unshakable confidence now replaced by panic. The human warship had shown them something they had never expected. A species willing to sacrifice everything to protect their place in the galaxy. They were not just fighting for survival. They were fighting for their future. And that made them dangerous. Too dangerous. What are we going to do, General? Commander Alara asked, her voice sharp with concern. We've lost too much. Their warship is unlike anything we've ever encountered. We cannot allow them to gain any more ground. Kaller's hand clenched into a fist as he stared at the holographic display of the human fleet, now moving toward their next target. The human flag was still visible in the background of every report. It was a symbol of their relentless will, a message the Zaldars could no longer ignore. We must stop them before they grow any stronger, Kaller muttered. We cannot let this continue. They've shown us their power, but they haven't shown us their full potential. We cannot risk underestimating them again. Alara nodded grimly. And what of our remaining fleet? Can we muster enough strength to stand against them? Collar hesitated. We've lost too many ships to face them head-on, but there may be another way, a more subtle approach. The general turned to the holodeck, bringing up a map of the galaxy. It showed the vast stretches of Zaldar-controlled territory, now increasingly vulnerable to human assault. The Zaldar Empire had once stood as a wall against any force that would challenge them, but now that wall was crumbling. There's a weapons station in the Proxima sector, Collar said, pointing to a location far from the human warship's current trajectory. It houses the Zaldar's most devastating weapon, one we've kept hidden for centuries. A weapon capable of destroying entire star systems. If we can reach it before the humans do, we may have a chance to turn the tide. Alara's eyes narrowed. You mean the exobarrage? That weapon is rumored to be able to wipe out any fleet in existence. If we can activate it, the humans won't stand a chance. Collar's face remained impassive, but inside, his heart raced. The exobarrage was a weapon of unimaginable power, a doomsday device. It had been developed in secret by the Zaldar's highest scientists, a last-ditch effort to maintain their dominance over the galaxy. But activating it came with a great cost. Its power could rip apart entire star systems, and the Zaldars had never tested its full potential. The device might save them, or it might destroy everything. If we can get to it first, Collar said, we'll have a weapon strong enough to force the humans to surrender. They may have the spirit to fight, but they will have no chance against the exobarrage. The Zaldar fleet's remaining ships were already being mobilized. Collar knew this would be their last stand. They had no other options. Either the exobarrage would give them the power to destroy the human warship, or it would signal the end of the Zaldar Empire. The Zaldar commanders worked in silence, preparing their forces for what was to come. They couldn't afford to fail again. The thought of facing another crushing defeat at the hands of the humans was unbearable. In the darkness of space, the exobarrage weapon awaited, hidden in the vast expanse of the Proxima sector. The Zaldars would move quickly, hoping to reach it before the humans could. But little did they know, humanity's warship was already on its way, determined to stop them before they could unleash their ultimate weapon. The countdown had begun. The stakes had never been higher. The turning point. The human warship, with its gleaming flag still waving proudly in the void, sailed toward the Proxima sector. Captain Joma Strider stood on the bridge, his gaze fixed on the galactic map before him. They had received intelligence that the Zaldar Empire was making a move for their secret weapon, the exobarrage, a weapon capable of destroying entire star systems. It was humanity's race against time. If the Zaldars got to it first, the galaxy would be plunged into chaos, and humanity would be on the brink of extinction. Joma's crew worked quickly, preparing for what was sure to be the toughest battle they'd faced. The Zaldar fleet was regrouping, now armed with their ultimate weapon. But humanity had something the Zaldars didn't: unity, purpose, and an unshakable will to survive. Captain, we're approaching the Proxima sector, Lieutenant Sarah Vale called from the helm. The Zaldar fleet is already in position. They're trying to secure the exobarrage. Jonah's mind raced, his heart beating faster. He knew the exobarrage was their last hope. If they failed to stop the Zaldars now, the weapon would give the Empire the power to wipe out entire planets, entire fleets. It was a weapon beyond anything humanity had ever encountered, and it had to be stopped. Prepare for evasive maneuvers, Jonah ordered, his voice steady but laced with determination. We're not just fighting for survival anymore. We're fighting for the future of every living being in this galaxy. The warship's engines roared as it adjusted course, heading straight for the heart of the Proxima sector. In the distance, the Zaldar fleet loomed, massive and ominous, surrounding the weapons station. Joma knew this wouldn't be an easy fight. The Zaldars were desperate, and desperation often made enemies more dangerous. Inside the station, the exobarrage sat in its massive chamber, a weapon of immense power. It was the key to the Zaldar Empire's final attempt to restore their dominance. The Zaldars knew that once the exobarrage was activated, nothing could stand in their way. No fleet, no civilization, not even the human warship, could survive its wrath. But what the Zaldars didn't know was that humanity had a secret weapon of its own. It wasn't technology. It wasn't a weapon of mass destruction. It was their courage, their determination to never back down. It was the same spirit that had carried them through countless battles, the same spirit that had fueled the creation of their warship. It was the belief that humanity's future was worth fighting for, no matter the cost. Jonah stood tall, staring at the view screen as the enemy fleet began to move into position. His crew, too, was resolute. They knew what was at stake, and though they faced an enemy with far superior numbers and weaponry, they also knew that they had something that could not be measured: heart. "Captain," Sarah said, her voice cutting through the tension, "we're being locked onto by their fleet. They're preparing to fire." Jonah's eyes narrowed. This was it. The moment they'd been preparing for. The moment where everything would either fall into place or come crashing down. "Return fire," Jonah commanded, his voice strong. "We can't let them launch the exobarrage. Engage all weapons." The human warship's weapons fired, beams of energy cutting through the cold void of space, hitting the Zaldar ships with deadly accuracy. The human fleet moved with precision, working together like a well-oiled machine. Every shot was calculated, every move coordinated. They weren't just attacking, they were out to end this war once and for all. The Zaldar fleet retaliated with full force. The space around them lit up with the brilliance of energy blasts and missile fire. But the human warship, with its impenetrable shields, absorbed the attacks, pushing forward relentlessly. The human flag waved above it all, a constant reminder to the crew of what they were fighting for. In the heart of the battle, General Collar stood at the helm of his flagship, watching as his forces were torn apart. The human warship had proven to be a formidable adversary, and now they were closing in on the exobarrage station. He had never felt so desperate, so helpless. The exobarrage was their last hope, and if the humans destroyed it, the Empire would be finished. "Activate the weapon," Collar ordered, his voice shaky with urgency. "We cannot let them reach it. Fire at will." But even as he spoke, the human warship was already on the move, its weapons blasting the remaining Zaldar ships away one by one. The human crew, unwavering, continued their relentless assault, their determination unbroken. Every shot, every maneuver brought them closer to their target. Jonah's voice came over the comms, calm and steady, despite the chaos unfolding around him. "This is the turning point, people. We've come too far to back down now. Keep pushing. We're taking the exobarrage out of play." The final push came swiftly. With one last coordinated attack, the human warship fired a concentrated blast at the Zaldar weapon station. The explosion that followed was massive, sending shockwaves through the Proxima sector. The exobarrage, the weapon that could have brought the galaxy to its knees, was destroyed in a brilliant burst of light. The Zaldar fleet, already reeling from their previous losses, had no hope left. The battle was over. The tide had turned. Humanity had won. But Jonah knew that this victory was only the beginning. The Zaldars had been defeated, but the galaxy was vast, and there were still forces out there that would challenge humanity. But for now, they had proven something important, that no matter how dire the situation, humanity would always fight. They would always rise, and they would never back down. As the human warship drifted through the debris of the battle, Jonah looked out at the stars. The human flag still flew high, a beacon of hope for the galaxy. And as he gazed into the future, he knew one thing for sure: humanity's story was just beginning. Victory and the legacy of the human flag. The dust of the final battle settled as the human warship, battered but victorious, drifted slowly through the debris of the Proxima sector. The once feared Zaldar fleet was now nothing more than broken fragments scattered across space. The exobarrage, the Zaldar's last hope of regaining their power, had been destroyed. The galaxy was, for the moment, safe from their tyranny. On the bridge of the warship, Captain Jonah Strider stood in silence, staring out at the vastness of space. The stars twinkled, calm and unyielding, as if they too had witnessed the struggle and were now offering their quiet approval. The war was over, the Zaldars had been defeated, and the galaxy now belonged to humanity. "Captain, we've received a message from Earth," Lieutenant Sarah Vale said, breaking the silence. "They want to know the status of the fleet." Jonah took a deep breath. "Tell them the war is over. Humanity has claimed its place among the stars. The Zaldar Empire is finished." He paused for a moment, his mind reflecting on everything that had led to this victory. The countless battles, the sacrifices made, the unyielding spirit of every human who had fought for their future. It had all come down to this, a single decisive moment in history. Humanity had faced the greatest threat the galaxy had ever known, and emerged victorious. On Earth, the news of their triumph spread like wildfire. The once divided nations, who had struggled and fought amongst themselves for centuries, now united under a common banner. The victory over the Zaldar Empire had brought humanity together in a way no war, no political dispute ever could. People from all walks of life, soldiers, scientists, civilians, celebrated together, their hearts swelling with pride. But the victory was not just about military might. It was about something far greater: the resilience, the courage, and the spirit of humanity. The human flag that had fluttered proudly over the warship, even in the midst of the greatest battles, had become more than just a symbol of their nation. It had become a symbol of their determination, their unity, and their refusal to ever be crushed by the weight of the universe. On the bridge, Jonah looked up at the flag once more. It still waved proudly in the vacuum of space, a beacon of everything humanity had fought for. To him, it represented not just the end of one war, but the beginning of a new era, an era where humanity would no longer be a forgotten species, relegated to the fringes of the galaxy. They had proven themselves, and the universe would know their name. "Captain," Sarah said softly, as if reading his thoughts, "what happens now?" Jonah smiled, his eyes filled with the weight of the moment. "Now, we rebuild. We help those who have been affected by this war. We secure our future, and we show the galaxy what humanity is capable of." As he looked out at the stars once more, Jonah knew that this victory was just the beginning. The Zaldars had been just one threat. There were others out there, lurking in the dark reaches of space, waiting to challenge humanity's place in the universe. But they were no longer the weak, struggling species they had once been. They were warriors, survivors, and pioneers. They had earned their place among the stars. The human warship, with its flag still flying high, began its journey back to Earth. The crew, though exhausted, stood tall. They had done what no one thought possible. They had conquered the impossible. And now, the galaxy would remember the name of humanity. As the ship moved through space, a message echoed through the communication channels, broadcasting across the galaxy. "We are human. We have arrived." And for the first time in history, the universe knew that humanity was here to stay. They would no longer be overlooked. They would no longer be underestimated. The galaxy had learned an important lesson: never underestimate the strength of the human spirit. The legacy of the human flag was now cemented in history. It was more than just a symbol. It was a promise that humanity would stand tall, no matter the odds. The human race had proven itself on the battlefield, and now they would show the universe that they could rise above any challenge, no matter how daunting. The war was over, but humanity's story had just begun.